Good evening, folks. This is Mark again here with JTech. And this evening, what we're going to do is do some rudimentary demonstrations on how to change out an air conditioning compressor on a given car. These two compressors are not compatible with the same automobile, but they will give you an opportunity to kind of see what the basic mechanics are behind swapping out a known bad compressor with a known good compressor. So if you'll bear with me, the first thing we want to do obviously is to get the compressor off the car. We're not going to go into that because that's a whole nother video. But now that we have both compressors off, what we're going to do is we're going to take a graduated cylinder and we're going to measure out how much oil comes out of this cylinder. We're hoping to get somewhere between 2 and 3 ounces. That's 4 ounces right there. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the old oil first and going to pour it out. And the reason we're doing this is you want to measure the amount of compressor oil that you get out, because if it's less than 2 ounces, then you want to make sure you can put 3 ounces in. If it's 3 or more, then you want to make sure that you put the same amount of oil back in. So the biggest deal is to make sure that basically you have 3 ounces of oil in your new compressor. So what we're going to do first is we're going to take this compressor here, which is locked up, and I don't know how good this oil will be. We'll find out as soon as I dump it, and we'll see where we're at. So one of the first things you want to do is drain it out. Now for display purposes, we've actually put in good PAG 100 oil in this. We have a little amount of PAG oil. So we're using that to basically for demonstration purposes. So what we're doing is I'm going to cycle this out best I can. The thing locked up pretty good. Okay, so now that I've got this oil drained, and I'm going to set it down here on my flat surface and look. Using this paint cup's a little difficult, but it appears as though we've got about 2 ounces of PAG 150 out of the, if I get this in there for you, out of the compressor. So that's less than 2 ounces, so we know that when we go to put the compressor oil back in the new one, that we're going to want to put in at least 3 ounces. That seems to be the norm for most of them. General rule of thumb, you may have some compressors that come with just assembly lube oil in them. You may have some come that already are charged and ready to put in, especially if they're like a factory direct compressor. They'll come in and they'll already be charged, or they'll at least have a tag on them that tells you the status of the charge of oil that's in the compressor. So we're going to go with the assumption that we've just poured this out and it's 2 ounces. And our new compressor did not have a tag on it. So I have to go with the objective that it may not have any oil in it. Now, the safest way to do this is I'm going to take this old oil, I'm going to pour it into a separate container, kind of let it drain out a little bit, and see where we're at with that. And then what I'm going to do is turn around and drain the new compressor into the same cup and see how much oil we get out of it. Again, the standard rule of thumb is we want to put 3 ounces back in it if it doesn't have any. Okay, it doesn't appear as though this compressor has any oil that came in it, so it was an assembly lube, an assembly lubricant that they used when they put the piston or put the compressor together. So that being said, what we're going to do is turn around and we're going to take 3 ounces of PAG 100 oil. And I'm going to take it, I'm going to measure it out of my cup. All right, and we're getting that measured. There we go. There's 3 ounces of oil. All right, so now I have 3 ounces of new oil. And I'll show you, this is basically above 2 ounces and below 4. So it's about where we want it. So what I'll do is on the new compressor then, I'm going to take and I'm going to pour a little bit down each side on the high side and low side both. And the reason I'm going to do that is because we're going to have to crank this compressor over a few times. You want to make sure that you get both sides lubricated. And what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to spin this compressor over, I would say maybe 6 to 10 times at the most, just to make sure the oil is is spread out within the compressor. That's very important because the last thing you want to do is run this darn compressor dry, being a new compressor. So what we're going to do is going to spin it over a few times, and you'll notice there's times when it will actually try to push oil back out at you, and that, for me, I always turn around and go a little slower to allow it to settle back down and go back into the compressor as best I can. You're going to spill a little bit. That's just the nature of the beast. But anyway, looks like we've got that pretty much taken care of now. And we've got ourselves going on about our 5th turn. And it looks like we're sitting in pretty good shape. So that being said, now that we have this done, and we've measured the oil, we put in exactly what we needed to go back into the compressor. We're going to turn around now and take our new compressor, and we'll put it on the automobile and get ready to pull it down. We have to, one thing you want to make sure you do when you do a compressor change out is to always replace the accumulator. If you have a fixed orifice tube system, or just to be clear on that, you always want to change those anytime you open up the system and it's open to atmosphere for very long. And from there, once you get the compressor back on the system and get all the parts back in, it's a good time to pull it down for about 5 minutes and see if it'll hold a vacuum. And after that, it's a simple matter of pulling it down and ensuring that we're in good shape and we can charge the system. So basically, that's the rudimentary steps on how to swap out a compressor that does not come charged, or one that does come charged, to measure and ensure that you have the right amount of oil in it prior to putting it on the vehicle. So again, this is Mark with JTech. I appreciate you watching, and thank you, and come back again.